It's like, as I like to say, if we get all through the final judgment and they ask, did you believe in God? I can honestly say, look, not only do I believe in God, but I believe in the craziest version possible.
Can't keep quiet when you start a riot.
And that's when humor became a sin, because now it was being used against those in authority. Now it was making fun of the priests. It was making fun of the ones who were rulers. That's when they were saying, oh, now it's a sin.
Got our scripture notes up and running. All of the scriptural references used in this episode will be brought to you by scripturenotes.com. For a free trial to Scripture Notes, please visit the link in the description. You're a stand-up comedian, but you have a philosophy degree. And one of the suggested titles that your producer gave me for a show topic was the spiritual philosophy of humor and or laughing our way to God. So just way too many things have come together at once. And I want to know, how does like Santa Claus's derelict younger brother meander into the KHTS studio with a philosophy degree that he's using to dunk on trolls with his like 750,000 Instagram followers? Like, what is this philosophy of humor? How do we laugh our way to God? And how does it help us dunk on trolls? I don't know. Rodney Norman, go.
Well, it was fun when I was going back to college, because I had my GI Bill, and I was trying to decide what to get a degree in, because I was getting paid to go to school, so I was like, that's pretty sweet, nice deal. I was already doing stand up. I was working every weekend at Wise Guys as an MC, and so I thought, go back and just finish up my degree.
Okay.
And I started taking philosophy classes, because I've always been fascinated with philosophy, and I thought, why not? I already know I'm not going to do anything with my degree. I'm just getting it just so I can say nah to my cousin who never went to college. Okay. So,
is that true?
There's a little bit of truth to that.
Yeah.
I'm the first person in 4 generations of my family to go to college.
Okay.
Nobody on both sides. None of them had ever gone to college. I was the first one that actually went to college and then got a degree.
Okay.
And I have a younger cousin. I believe she got a degree too, but I got there. I went before she did. So
okay,
there's
excellent.
That. But no, I started taking philosophy classes, and I very quickly realized, as a stand-up, taking philosophy, that it's basically the same thing. They've even said, I don't know who quote. It's been attributed to so many people. It's hard to say who has said it, but it says that comedians are just philosophers with. Wait, I got that wrong. Philosophers are just comedians with bad material.
Oh, brutal. Yeah, but funny and
yes.
True.
And so as I'm taking philosophy and I'm studying logic and all these things, I realize that, basic logic is just the blueprint for writing comedy. Premise, setup, punch. I mean, it's the same as, logical solipsism. So I just saw all these parallels to comedy and philosophy, and so I just started incorporating philosophy into my stand-up. And when I started doing social media, I just did the same thing. I'm just teaching basic philosophy to people in a ridiculous, silly way. And I find that being funny and silly is the best way to teach anything, including the gospel.
Oh, okay. So there's like a religious bent to it then.
Well, yes, because you can convey an idea better through humor than you can anything else.
Okay, interesting. Keep going.
You know what I mean?
Keep going. Yeah.
And you can connect with people in like I tell people, growing up going to church, very different than most experiences. You pick up some idiosyncrasies, like To this day, I can't sit through a boring meeting without this uncontrollable desire to eat Cheerios from a Ziploc baggie.
Okay.
You know, your humor is just a great way to open up the socially, getting to know somebody. It's hard to hate somebody that makes you laugh.
Yeah. Now
it really comes down to it.
So Brad Whitbeck, a reoccurring co-host on this show, I know that he knows exactly who said this, and I do not want to incorrectly attribute this quote. So I'm actually going to look this up on the fly. But I believe it was Moliere that he said, like, our duty is to instruct men, is to correct men while entertaining them. So I'm actually going to look this up right now, correct men while entertaining them, and see if it was Moliere. Yes, it was Moliere's defense of comedy and its moral purpose, okay? But he said it was to correct men by amusing them. I'm sorry. So you kind of feel like it's not just didactic, but like humor has almost like a moral impetus to it.
It does, and it can have sort of a healing quality to it. Well, humor got a bad rap early on because of the Greeks, because of Aristotle and Plato, because they both believed in what's called the superiority theory of humor, and that humor is really just the mocking of someone who's less than you are, or mocking of your enemy.
Oh, so is that why it's considered low comedy, lowbrow,
exactly.
lower?
And for centuries, that was the prevalent idea that comedy, that laughter is in some cases considered a sin, because all you were doing is you were mocking people who were lower than you, who were less than you.
Interesting.
Humor was used to make fun of the enemy, and so it always had sort of this for a very long period of time. Humor was looked as being crass and evil.
Well, I don't think we're out of that.
Oh no, not
I
at
feel
all.
like
It's
in the
still-
highest,
it's still-
I feel like in the highest echelons of kind of like polite society, loud laughter is like, well, that's not what the most wealthy would do. That's not what the most, distinguished would do. Like modern, I would at least say American, even maybe dare I say Western conceptions of being distinguished kind of preclude not being a person who's seen laughing a lot, because that's vulgar. That's like entertainment for the base and the vulgar and the masses.
Yes.
The populist blight that is upon us.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so you think that comes from the Greeks?
Oh, it certainly is. That idea of superiority is what humor is about. That it's all really just mocking those who we see as less than us. It's mocking things that we feel we are superior to.
So this is really interesting. Are you suggesting maybe that just like they say that there's a great apostasy where plain and precious truths were like removed from the Bible and the manuscripts that were ultimately compiled into the canon, and that time in between, I don't want to say the reign, but the time when Jesus Christ and the apostles were on the earth, that a lot of those plain and precious truths were lost, so much so that like Joseph Smith restored them, for lack of a better term. That's why it's called the Restoration, right? Are you kind of saying like the essence and understanding of humor might have actually been one of the previously not understood victims of the great apostasy? Is that what you're saying?
It could very well be. Who am I?
Okay, rock on. All right.
Otherwise.
Okay, so how do we get out of that? Like, keep going, dude. Keep going.
As time went on, the other theories developed. Like there was the during the psychosomatic ideas of Freud. Freud came up with that humor was a way to release, that it was essential to the human experience, because we had to be able to laugh about the world, because it was a way to deal with the stress of life, and being able to make fun of things make it easier for us to deal with the horrors of reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
And I think that there's a lot of truth to that, because I do think that humor is a great way to overcome issues, because and I guess in the superiority this is kind of where I've taken superiority theory and sort of made it palatable, because instead of as I see it, superiority over people and that we're better than them because they're a bunch of moron idiots. You take it away from that, and superiority it's about victory, and that when we succeed at something, like when my football team won the state championship for football back in high school, we laughed. There wasn't anything particularly funny, but it was just really hey, look, we did it. We won.
Yeah, okay.
And we're laughing and we're jumping around and everything because we had overcome something. So the laughter comes in victory. And so think of it that way. It's like, when I was almost 300 pounds, I used to do jokes about being fat.
Wait, you were a 300 pounder?
Yes, I was. Well, I got on the scale one time. I was 296 pounds. I thought I am literally 2 Big Macs away from 300 pounds. And I stopped cold. I literally I went to just eating salads once a day for 3 months, and I dropped 60 pounds.
Whoa.
Because
okay.
I just could not. I was just that, looking at the scale, 296, thinking I'm about the scale that I had topped out at 300 pounds. I'm about to max out my scale, and it scared me. And my jokes up to that point in time were about being fat and how I don't care, I'm fat, this is me. But then I started making jokes about losing weight and not wanting to be fat, and to me it was funnier because I was overcoming that thing. So that the idea that we can celebrate victories through humor, because it's a good thing. It's when we laugh, we relax, because when we're laughing, we're not perceiving any danger around us, because we have succeeded at something. We have become victorious, and so we laugh when we're comfortable.
So instead of being perceived as something vulgar that's like the opium of the masses, for lack of a better term, and something that only the low lifes participate in, you say no, the high lifes will, because the high lifes are victorious, and that it has to do with victory, not victimhood, right?
Exactly. Now it can be it can be used and has been used to insult,
like in the Great and Spacious Building, pointing the finger of scorn.
So there is part of that, and we see the people who are anti anything. We use this in politics. That's why political cartoons are powerful, because we're able to dehumanize the enemy and mock and ridicule the enemy.
Yeah.
And you'll see that anytime you have disagreements, that's typically where they'll go, is they use humor to mock and ridicule whoever, whatever it is. And so we see that, and it's kind of funny. One of the things I think the most brilliant thing the church has done recently in recent times is to run ads during the Book of Mormon musical. Interesting. So you think that was a good choice? Yes. Okay. Because they've said their ads where you've seen the play, now read the real thing. Okay. And it was a clever way of just saying, hey, look, we get the joke. We are peculiar, we're weird, and we get it. It's like, as I like to say, if we get all through the final judgment and they ask, did you believe in God? I can honestly say, look, not only do I believe in God, but I believe in the craziest version possible.
It's like in Bill Maher's Religulous. They said crazy was already taken. So, the Mormons had to do extra crazy or like
Yes.
whatever, right? Well, so
Stepped it
I'm
up.
curious. So I actually have two questions for you now, but I'll jump ahead to this one and then we'll go back to the other one. So you don't view the Book of Mormon musical as like kind of like in bad taste humor that really bordered upon plain old just religious bigotry? Or do you think it was, because full disclosure, I have yet to see it.
Okay, I have not seen it.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, cool.
Seen it. But just but understanding who wrote it.
Because there's multiple camps. There's some people that say like, okay, this goes beyond humor. I'm a free speech purist. I would never, of course, want to restrict anybody's ability to speak any ideas or anything like that. But I also recognize that like anti-Semitic cartoons in the 30s was beyond just humor. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it was like going into like anti-religious and bigoted tropes. And a lot of people feel that that's what the Book of Mormon musical did. And interestingly enough, when I spoke with Richard Bushman, he said next time we should fight back. And he thought maybe that wasn't a good choice. But I like that I hear you saying, oh, I think it was a good choice, and you lay out a good reason. I do have a question for you. This is the original question. Why, in your mind, if laughter is that of the victors and of high status and not being that of the victims in lower status, and that's all Greek philosophy gone bad from the great apostasy, shall we say, why are we counseled against loud laughter? I know they took it out already, but what was that whole like avoiding loud laughter thing?
I think it's part of that Puritan attitude that, permeated almost everything within, American religious societies. This idea that, like I said, at that point in time, the only theory of humor was that it was used for the position of superiority, that it was somehow it was evil in just its general attitude. But what's happened is that the lowers, the people who are being mocked and ridiculed, were turning it, because now they, especially as we had, for a long time, those who were being suppressed really couldn't use humor because they weren't allowed to speak or do anything to mock or ridicule those who were in charge. Well, as we've had these revolutions that have taken place, and we overthrew the hierarchy of the monarchies in Europe and overthrew the feudal lord system and made it so that had a little more common sense running things instead of just a bunch of inbred idiots. We thought maybe this. So
you're not a monarchist, is what you're saying?
Not at all. And so you see this change where the revolutions required them to mock and ridicule those who were above them, so that they could get people to join the revolution. Say, hey, look, because forever we looked at the kings that they were blessed by God, and that they were a representation of Jesus Christ on earth, and that
practically sacred, blessed. Therefore you can't make fun of it because
so you're not allowed to do that. Well, then all of a sudden we start mocking and ridiculing them, and then the revolution is going, there's no reason for these people to be in charge, when the only qualification they have is they were born.
So it's a tool of revolution.
Yes.
So Saul Alinsky forgot to put humor in his rules for radicals.
They do say to mock and ridicule them, because you got to dehumanize them. And this is what revolution created, was now the lower classes were using humor. They were reversing it. Now it wasn't the higher ups mocking and ridiculing those below them. Now it was the ones below were making fun of people above. And this is when humor changed, is through these revolutions. And now all of a sudden it became a tool of the masses. It became a tool of the common folk. And it became more acceptable amongst them. And even though there were still those holding on to the pious position that, the loud laughter is somehow demeaning to the spirit and it killed the spirit, I think we've been able to let go of those, because you see in conferences and at church that people are using humor quite effectively.
So how does one laugh his way to God, as your producer suggested the title be? So how do you laugh your way to God?
Well, you'll find that in humor that you can basically make molehills into mountains and turn mountains into molehills. So the experiences you've had that have been traumatic, that you want to overcome, however or whatever they may be, a good way to overcome that is through Christ, coming to the Lord. Well, and it's a relief, because what happens is that you realize that you don't have to be continued to be a victim of whatever experience it was, abuse or whatever took place. You don't have to continue to be abused. And one of the ways that you can do that is when you start making fun of what the experience was. You make fun of the creep idiot that abused you. Because it helps you deal with the pain. When you can
as like a coping mechanism.
Yes, when you can make fun of that experience, you gain power over it. And this is the power of humor. And this is why when they come, they want to take away your First Amendment rights, they go after comedians. It's not appropriate to make fun of this. It's not appropriate to do this. You can't use these words. You can't say that. You can't make fun of these people. You can't make fun of them. And as soon as they start doing that and say, you can't do these things, you can't use these words, you can't say these things, that's because they know that there's power in humor.
So the they being the proverbial man, the institution, the establishment, the authoritarians, right? You point out that, okay, when they're trying to restrict free speech and when they're trying to become authoritarian and oppressive, they always come after the comedians first, which is unfortunately, it's an eternal truth. Being a comedian yourself, do you ever just feel nervous thinking, I am the canary and they're taking us into the coal mine? Do you ever feel like...
Well, it's funny because, a big thing that we talk about is, cancel culture.
Yeah.
And about the things that are taboo that you shouldn't talk about. Man, it's funny. I talk about them. I just do it in a way that you don't realize I'm talking about it until it's too late.
Oh, that is funny. That is funny. So here's a question that I have for you. It seems like you've lamented that humor is perceived as something that the lowborn do, or that the lowlifes do, from Greek philosophical influence.
Well, it was a tool of the people in power to make fun of those who were below them.
Oh, I see.
That's how it was used. And then because they knew that they used it to control and manipulate. Well, then once the power switched through the revolutions, now those who were lower class were able to use humor to mock and ridicule those above them.
Okay.
In a more open way, because now they could get away with it. And that's when humor became a sin, because now it was being used against those in authority. Now it was making fun of the priests. It was making fun of the ones who were rulers. That's when they were saying, "Oh, now it's a sin."
Okay,
so it's been part of the power structure, but once those who are lower class started using it to gain power, that's when it's a sin.
Okay, so here's my question. When you step back from most moral questions, at least in our faith, it's very common to have the Sunday school answer of, what would Jesus Christ do? We see little bracelets around town, WWJD, right?
Yeah.
Or WWJCD, sorry. What would Jesus Christ do? Which begs the question, does God indeed have a sense of humor himself? Is humor lowborn, or is it divine? Because if it's divine, he's got to have a sense of humor. But I'm curious, what maybe the scriptural evidences of that would be, because I can't think of any jokes that were told in like the Old or New Testament or the Book of Mormon anytime soon.
I think one of my favorite one is he refers to James and who else? But he calls them Boanerges, the sons of thunder.
Yeah. So you think that was facetiousness? You don't think that was?
I think he was being funny. And then just, I mean, look, it's been pointed out before, but just look at a platypus. I mean, come on.
So just like some people say that creationism is self-evident, it is its own evidence, that it's just self-evident that the intelligent design created this earth. You're saying it is self-evident that God has a sense of humor because he created a platypus.
A platypus, giraffes, the honey badger. I mean, the honey badger is the small.
What's a honey badger?
Oh, it's the most wonderful animal in the world, because this thing will take on everything.
Oh, I am looking up a honey badger right now.
Honey badger will fight lions.
Oh, isn't that a wolverine?
They're closely related. Well,
okay.
But the honey badger in particular is smaller than the wolverine, but will take on a wolverine.
Really?
I mean, there's videos of honey badgers taking on a den of lions and winning.
What? Really?
Because they are just absolutely ferocious. They are not afraid of anything. They will go and they will steal honey right out of the beehive. And they're getting stung by bees, and they just don't care. They just will do everything and anything. They fear nothing. And they are I just love them. They're just,
So I'm actually looking this up, and I'm typing in scriptures where God has a sense of humor, because you're bringing up a really interesting point here, that this could be one of like the plain and precious truths lost in the apostasy, is a fundamental philosophical understanding of what the true nature of humor is. Because the Greeks used to say, hey, this is a tool of the highborn to oppress the lowborn. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the Enlightenment folk are saying, hey, whoa, no, this is a tool of the lowborn to fight back against the highborn and actually establish equilibrium and freedom, as we say in our society. But you really kind of want to know, okay, well, which one is it? Is it a mixture of both? What is the truth of the matter?
Yeah, I think that there are jokes that fit each of those ideas.
So how do you feel about John Cleese's take on the role of humor? Have you ever seen what he has to say?
Yeah. That might be a good idea. Just play it and we'll talk about it.
Do you know the exact clip?
Yeah.
So I can sum it up. I mean, I've seen the clip before, but basically what he did, without us having to look it up in real time on the middle of a radio broadcast right now, I can almost quote it verbatim because I've watched it so many times, and it's generated a lot of thought. And there's actually part of the reason why I want to talk to you about this topic in the studio today, is he said, at the end of the day, inherently, all comedy is a form of criticism. Mm-hmm. And he said, here's proof. Take your most non-offensive, generalized humor joke out there. And he said the joke. And the joke is the following. How do you make God laugh? ... Pause. You tell him your plans. Ba-doom, psh. And we all laugh, and even you kind of smile and nod with that, because all of us have experienced this phenomenon where you had such great plans and everything was just so laid out perfectly. And then none of those plans came at all to fruition how you planned it. And all of us have experienced it, so we can all laugh because it's all happened to us. But at the end of the day, as John Cleese points out, he says, even it's small blasphemy, because it is a criticism. Now, it's not a criticism of anybody in the room, therefore none of us are offended. But it is inherently what? A criticism of God. Mm-hmm. So all humor at its core is criticism. And that kind of makes me think, okay, well, what role does that play in our society? What role does criticism play in morality, right? You have to be able to critique things in order to make sound judgments. And we know we're not supposed to judge unrighteously. One of the great benefits of having the Joseph Smith translation and revelation and insight into the scriptures is he was able to provide deeper insight that it's not judge ye not, that it's actually just judge ye not unrighteously. And unless you really, really think, according to God's standard, that you're being a righteous judge with no mote in his eye, so you can see the beam in somebody else's eye, you're not qualified to judge. So when in doubt, judge not, right? But if you can gain righteous insight, then we have to. That's why, like, the apostles will judge us, as Jesus Christ said in the last days. And so we have to be able to provide criticism, hopefully constructive criticism, in our society. But how do you make criticism truly constructive? I think kind of one of the first steps is making a joke about it, because it seems that, like, if your son were going to look horrible on a date, instead of saying, bro, you look horrible and ugly, those pants make you look stupid, which might be what you're thinking, you could say, maybe, for example, like, oh, are you guys going to disco night at the roller skate rink, bro? Or are you just wearing those tight pants for no other reason?
Or you could say, are you really like this girl because you want to challenge her to make sure she likes you for who you really are?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So that seems to soften the punch, for lack of a better term. And so that kind of makes me think, like, what role does actually humor play in this equation? Because, like, for example, I think it's Matthew 8 or Matthew 22 says the way to do conflict resolution with one of your brothers, if you have aught against thy brother, first you should approach him and then privately say, hey, I've got this problem with you, and this kind of thing has bothered me. And then he said, hopefully you will gain a brother, meaning you'll be able to work it out, and you'll gain a brother from the interaction. And then if that doesn't work, then come with a friend or with a witness and say, hey, look, this is still bothering me, and I've got these witnesses that I've approached you on this. And if that doesn't work, finally bring the church, it says, bring the elders in the church, at which point, if the person still doesn't budge, well, fine. Then even Jesus Christ himself, the great teacher, says, okay, after the third time, once you've brought the church, like, holy smoke, now it's time to be talking, like, excommunication from the group, or shunning this person until he repents or whatever, so on and so forth. But it doesn't exactly say what role humor plays along the way, or if maybe it's just oil between all three of those gears and can be used the whole time. But that's something I've thought of often, like, what is the true nature and the role of this gift individuals have been given of humor? Because, like, the gift of prophecy, we know its purpose. The gift of tongues, we know its purpose. The gift of, beauty, wealth, all of these other great and awesome things that can happen to somebody. The gift of gab, even the word charisma means a gift from the gods in ancient Greek. We kind of all see where those gifts play out, but we don't really see the noble and elevated and kind of moral purpose of humor. But I have a feeling it's to soften criticism, so that everybody is hopefully entertained by the process of correcting, without an individual, like, bearing as bad a brunt in that process. Is that making sense to you, or am I off?
It's a really nice way to be mean to somebody. I mean, when it comes down to it, that's what you're doing, is you're criticizing somebody, but in a way that you're not being mean about it. You're letting them know, I care about you. That's why I'm teasing you. If you look at the great work of Don Rickles, a lot of people will look at him and say, oh, that was, vulgar, and how dare he makes, fun of, he's racist and all this stuff. But in reality, he was the kindest, most wonderful human you could probably ever meet. He was just a wonderful human being. And he was using the humor to make fun of racism. He wasn't making fun of races. He was making fun of racism.
Yeah.
By showing how ridiculous it was. Showing how humor by being as insulting as you can, he took the blow out of it. He knocked it down a peg. He was critical of criticism.
Interesting. So I'm going to pull up a couple of these clips for our family-friendly audience here. Do you have any racist or vulgar clips you would like to recommend? No,
everything and anything by him. But that's the beauty of humor, is being able to confront your brother or someone who's offended you. You can use humor to kind of soften the blow, bring it up and say, hey man, you're a little rough. You trying to beat me up? Are you in the mafia? What are you doing? You know what I mean?
Okay, so in our last little 5 or 6 minutes here, I got a question. Would you say, 2 questions. First, would you say humor is a spiritual gift?
I do believe so. I think being able to take very difficult things and make light of them, put them in their proper place, I do think it's a gift. I mean, we've seen it used effectively in very spiritual circumstances. In fact, there are groups of people who do laughing yoga, where they just go.
What? Really?
They do yoga and they tell jokes and they laugh and they fart and just be silly.
Okay, I ain't doing yoga with anybody that's farting on me.
But
we're all two together and we're all too sweaty.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it can be used as a healing, because it releases dopamine and serotonin. It has a physiological effect, but it also has a very strong and powerful psychological effect. Like I said, when you can take something that has been holding you back and keeping you back, and you're able to make fun of it, then you have power over it, and then you can move on. You can claim victory over those things that have been haunting and holding you back. Making fun of your inability to commit to doing something that you've always loved and wanted to do. When you start making fun of it and realize it's silly that I'm not doing this, it's silly that I'm not painting. I love painting. I've always wanted to be a painter, but I never paint because you're being too critical about the process of painting. You think, well, I'm not a perfect painter, therefore I don't want to be a painter if I can't be the best painter. Well, every painter has to go and paint really bad first before you become good. And when you start making fun of yourself for holding back, and you realize, hey, all I got to do is just put paint on a piece of paper, and it's not that big of a deal. And then you start doing it. There's joy in that, and you can use humor to get you to overcome all of those kind of things and move on, because you can use it to criticize yourself in a way that you're not being critical. So
how does one cultivate? So if it is indeed a spiritual gift, and we know, for example, you can cultivate the gift of tongues. We talk to, about missionaries doing that in the MTC all the time. Patience, anything that is virtuous, lovely, or of good report or praiseworthy, we seek after these things. How can one then, if we've contextualized comedy as being one of those virtuous and lovely things, how can people seek after it? Do you think that it's something that can be cultivated, much like the gift of prophecy, the gift of tongues, gift of X, Y, or Z thing? Or do you think that it's kind of like, it's like height? You can't teach height.
I think it's a lot like, it's like you could go to a basketball camp and learn how to play basketball and improve your skills. You can get better as a basketball player. Now, does that mean you're going to be Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Steph Curry? No. But can you be better at it? Absolutely. You can improve, and have benefits from being able to, shoot a 3-pointer or, post up at top of the key. You be better at that. And humor is the same thing. You can get better at it. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the next Carlin or Dane Cook or, Bill Burr, but you can improve your skills. You can see the things that make you a funnier person. And a lot of that is just really getting into who you are and finding out who you are and finding out what's funny about you. We're all funny. We all are kind of quirky and weird and peculiar. And that's kind of the fun part of becoming a comedian is it's an interpersonal journey, because you're not just finding what's funny. You're finding out what's funny about you.
Ooh, that one's good. That one's good. And that actually begs my final question here. Was I realized a flaw, at least in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints system. Okay. We have classes about everything. We have gospel doctrine classes. We've got classes for newcomers, classes for, advanced members of many years. We've got financial literacy classes. We've got classes on how to knit, how to can, how to save money, how to, volunteer. We've got classes on deep doctrine all the way up to nursery classes for the 18 to 24 month olds, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got every type of class for almost every aspect of life in our church. The young men are going to be coming over to this studio actually later on for a career night to talk about radio, podcasting, motion media,
really?
The whole 9 yards.
That's
yeah.
cool.
I've had cops show off their semi-automatic SWAT team gear. When I was a young man, we had like 3 or 4 FBI and LAPD, like SWAT team guys, like show off what it's like to do. Like there's so many robust classes. I've never taken a how to be more humorous class sanctioned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're missing one, bro.
Yes, they are.
And you need to teach it.
Yes,
you need to write the official class on how to cultivate the spirit of, what are we calling it? The spirit of humor, the spirit of what? What should we call it?
Probably the spirit of humor, spirit of laughter.
The spirit of laughter, not loud laughter, but laughter, which, by the way, I heard that the correct translation of loud laughter actually means mockery.
Yes, mockery, yeah.
That it's not the actual act of loud laughter, but loud insinuates forced. And so forced laughter was like an old way of saying mockery or something, or pointing the finger of scorn like the great accuser in the book of Isaiah. So,
like I said, superiority, mocking. We're better than you.
Yes, exactly. So, are you ready to step up and take the challenge and teach the class, bro?
Oh, absolutely.
So we got to call up Russell M. Nelson. I was going to say before he dies. You know what I'm saying? There was no prophecy in that. I'm just saying, hey, every morning that guy wakes up at 99 years old. Yes. He's on borrowed time, and it is miraculous. If there's any proof that the Abrahamic covenant of old and that the old warrior priests are back, it's that brother still cranking at 99 years old.
Yes.
He's about to celebrate his 100th birthday standing up in front of like a bunch of people at a podium. That is baller. That is tough. That is BA.
Yes.
So anyway, thanks for hanging out with us. This has been great, man. This has been great.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. So where can people find you if they want to just, get a little bit more of this philosophy of funny, this philosophy of humor, get more of your stand-up? How can our audience find you, bro?
Very simple. RodneyNorman.com.
RodneyNorman.com.
Yes.
That's simple, huh?
You'll find me there.
Okay, awesome. Well, you got to check him out, especially his Instagram profile. That's definitely one of my favorite places to find him, and where you find gems like this one, that started this conversation 45 minutes ago. So anyway, guys, this has been great. It's been real, and it's been fun, and it's been real fun. If you want to support the channel, please make sure that you visit WardRadio.com. You can get some merch there, maybe buy a shirt. We also have some really, really cool hats that are going that are for sale on the website, again, at WardRadio.com. Our War in Heaven hats are selling like hotcakes. If you'd like to just contribute, like with a direct contribution, shall we say, we are available both on Zelle as well as on Venmo. You can check us out at Ward Radio on both those handles there. And also, if you want to maybe help out with some of the equipment in the studio, we have an Amazon wish list. Every once in a while, we get some really cool new equipment in the mail. People help us out with everything from cables that have broken to camera replacements that we have for all the goodies here that keep the production quality of Ward Radio so high. So if you guys can help us out with any of those, that is very much appreciated. And as always, guys, for this and more, please make sure you check us out at WardRadio.com.
Can't keep quiet when you start a riot.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. We assume if you made it this far that you liked our content, so please make sure you like this video and you share it with your friends. Now, in order to keep this content flowing freely, we need your help. If you're a person of means, please check us out on Venmo, the Cash App, or Zelle and consider a direct contribution to the channel. Or you could always go to WardRadio.com and sign up for our newsletter there and receive all of our latest Ward Radio news articles directly to your inbox. And while you're there, maybe consider purchasing some merch. We have some really cool hats, some really cool shirts, so you can strut your stuff and support the channel that way. Or if you're a kind of person that wants to just help out with some of the equipment in the studio, we have an Amazon wish list linked in the description as well. And don't forget scripturenotes.com. You have to read your scriptures daily, and scripturenotes.com is frankly the coolest way to study your scriptures, and they're a very generous sponsor of this channel. So please consider a free trial with scripturenotes.com. The link to Scripture Notes will also be in the description of this video. Either way, whether you're pressing this little button right here to subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends, or whether you are actually hitting this button right here just to watch another video, we look forward to seeing you in the next program.